Okay, we are live. Hi, everyone. It is Katie here from becomeagroupguru.com. I'm here with Uriah Guilford of The Productive Therapist, correct? Uriah?
Hey, yes.
This is Uriah's first Facebook Live, so be kind. Not that you're not always kind. So I see that people are going to be popping onto the screen, and I'm excited about that. But let's just start with, so Uriah, you and I have been working together. You know, I have a VA through your company, and it's been working so well. I just shared in my Facebook group that yesterday, well, now it will have been 2 days ago, I hired a new therapist who, you know, had 8 hours open to fill in her schedule. And then I just kind of like emailed Holly, who I'm working with, and said, hey, I have a new therapist, here's her schedule. And then literally 24 hours later, I looked at the schedule and there were 3 full fee, you know, ideal clients for my new therapist on the schedule. And it's just such an amazing thing to be able to do therapy, watch TV with my family, walk my dog, whatever I want to do, and then be able to look at the schedule again and have it be even more full. So yeah, so I wanted to start with that win.
Yeah, I think that's such a fabulous feeling, you know.
It's an amazing feeling. Go ahead.
It really is. It really is. So, what was your question?
I don't think I had a question. I think I was just sharing how awesome it was.
No, so I think, you know, for me, I've been in practice for 10 years. And it was only about 6 to 8 months ago that I actually handed off intake calls. And literally, I think it was one of the most sort of life-changing experiences, not to overstate it, but it really made a huge difference in my quality of life and feeling like I didn't have to carry all the, you know, juggle all the things, and that my business could grow while I'm, like you said, doing other things. I think it's fantastic.
So I'm curious for you, and then I'll share for myself as well, like what were you doing, or what was the point that you were at when you really decided, oh, hey, I can't be the intake person and the therapist and the group practice owner? Like, what was going on that made you decide you needed to hand it off finally?
Right. Well, I think, you know, any solo practice or builds a group practice at some point realizes that they're running out of time and they're running out of energy, but they probably still want to grow. And I think for me, quality of life has been super important as a family person and just as a business person. So I actually genuinely enjoy doing those intake calls, and I always enjoy talking to people. And I feel like I'm really good at it too.
I do too.
Yeah, right. I think a lot of us do probably.
Yeah.
Because we're so good at connecting with people, and obviously we have huge hearts and we want to. But actually one of the problems that I came up against was, you know, because I've been marketing myself and promoting myself in my community for so many years, everyone calling was looking for me. And so when it was me on the phone, they said, well, oh, you're amazing. You know, I don't know if they would say that. They would say, I want to work with you, right? They would say that.
They would.
And then I would have to do sort of this sort of backpedal kind of thing and say, oh, but I have this amazing other therapist. So I realized that it was time for me because of that reason. And then also, I just had so many other things that I wanted to be focusing on and doing. And so when I finally handed that over, it was a big change for me.
Yeah, and I can relate to that story, and I'm sure there are at least 8 viewers right now. Comment if you're here. I see Jan is here. Whoever else is here, let us know who's here so we can say hi to you. But for sure, I can relate to your story of like, you want to do it all, right? So I have my group practice. I have my online business where we do filling groups, course creation, all those things. And I was doing all of the other stuff with it, like answering the phones and taking care of billing, and everything was me. And so, you know, it got to this critical point where I was like, I know I'm really good at all of these things. And I think, so just to speak to a vulnerability piece of it, like, just like you said, I really enjoyed doing the calls and I was really good at them. But also, it's the first voice that anybody hears when they call your business. And my business is like my baby, right? My third baby, my child and my dog are my first two. So it's really important in terms of branding and community reputation and all those things to have somebody who's really skilled and competent and the voice of your business. So that was really scary for me to be able to let that go and let someone else take that over.
Absolutely.
And then I did, and then it was life-changing.
You don't have trust issues like me.
Have what, trust issues? No, I have control issues.
I'm sure. So. Yeah, no control issues here.
So, and then just to like point out the life-changing difference that it made was you and I had a conversation after my first or second week of having one of your VAs, and you were like, you signed on for like this small package, but you've had 14 hours in phone calls this week. And I was like, oh my crap, like that was me last week.
Right.
I was doing those 14 hours and all my clients
Right.
and like everything else. So like time, life, energy, all of those things, it's like a gift that you get back, right? Okay.
And sometimes we don't realize actually how much we're doing, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I think we do, but we don't, right? Until you have that number. You're like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Here, Cassidy's here, Ivy's here, Janine is here, Diane is here. Guys, feel free to ask questions if you have them. So we're going to go through some of the critical things that I think are important about a phone screening process. And I'm going to ask your insight as well, Uriah, as long as you're cool with that, which I hope you are because you're here. So
absolutely.
You're here for the ride. All right, so you all know if you're here that we talk about filling groups in my group. So one of the things I wanted to talk about is how phone screenings are so critical. So for me, you know, before I'll have anyone join onto my group, I have to talk to a parent on the phone. I have to see the kid in my office to make sure I'm placing them in the right group. But even in terms of individual, I mean, Uriah, what are your thoughts? Like, do you ever accept anyone into your practice that you just have them like schedule online or through email, or is everyone kind of through phone screenings? There's no right or wrong.
I've always done 15-minute phone consultations like a lot of us, and I still feel really good about that. I'm currently exploring, you know, some other options for people to schedule online, but I still like the idea of them talking to a person and making sure that there's a really nice handoff to the right therapist or the right group. Right. I don't think you can really replace that with technology.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, a lot of people have their system in place for individual clients where they can sign up online and they get everything, you know, sent out to them. And there are definitely systems that are helpful. For me, in terms of groups, I think building rapport and trust up front is so important, because coming into a group is so different than just coming in to meet a therapist to see if you're a match. You're coming in and meeting like 8 other people, and that can be really scary.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think overcoming objections, you know, about what the group looks like, navigating the sign-up process smoothly, all of those things are so important. Just like you said, you know, that first connection, doing that 15-minute consultation is so important for sure. So that
for people who have groups where there's kids or teenagers, I think parents have a lot more questions too. I don't know, an adult might sign up for a group much quicker, anger management or postpartum depression or something like that. But I think parents want to know, I don't know about you, but the question that I get the most often is, so what about the other kids in the group? What are they like? You know, they want to know what their child is being exposed to. So there's a lot of reassuring that happens and sort of confidence building in the process.
I would agree so much. I mean, I get a similar question that's like, well, what if they learn more unhealthy things when they're there? Like, we don't want them learning something else that they haven't already thought of. So yes, reassuring, being able to say, this is what it looks like, or this is what you can expect is so important.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then this point that I think is interesting, because I love talking about sales and marketing. And Uriah, I think that we've been like in the same circles for a couple years and back and forth connecting on different things, and just this idea of like digital marketing and online stuff and how exciting it is. The psychology of sales just interests me so much, but that signups, you know, whether it's a new client for individual or especially for a group, it really is a sales process. Do you have a set sales process you have groups and workshops and things that you do? Like, do you have certain things that you know work for you to get people signups and sales?
Yeah, absolutely. Are you talking about like solely online or on the phone, or kind of both?
Whatever, wherever you want to go with it. No rules.
I think one of the things that was helpful for me is I realized that over time I had developed sort of my own unwritten call script, right? That involved certain strategies, certain ways of talking to people that really helped walk them to making a decision. And so I think, you know, if anybody's listening to this and they want to do an exercise, I think it would be really helpful to sit down and write out the things that you know you always usually say. And then you can obviously refine that and realize what is working for you, what's not working for you. And that's helpful whether you're doing it all on your own or when you're ready to hand it over to somebody else. Then you say, hey, this is what's really been working for me. And it's just kind of a nice transition.
I love that you said that, because that was something that I wanted to touch on as well, so I have a 10-step intake process that I teach in my mastermind exactly, and we practice it and we troubleshoot it and all those things. But you have a little bit of a glimpse into what that looks like, because I sent it to you and I sent it to the VA that works for you and now works for me. And I really do think that it's important to have kind of like, I mean, obviously not a robotic script, but definitely a script where things flow and you're understanding like what are the problems that someone's coming in with, what are the goals, you know, how would you like to be supported, and just this a flow of information or an information sequence that brings someone from building rapport, building trust to closing, or, you know, signing them into a service by the end of the call if you both agree that it's a good fit. So
it's really an art. It
is for sure an art. I mean, and I had somebody that when I first opened my group practice was doing calls for me and was fine, and, you know, but the art was lost. It was more of a following the script and taking the brain off and just reading the words, right? And so
everybody knows when you're doing that.
right. So it really does require like a trained person who's familiar with that flow.
Right.
So, and that was one of the things that I loved about when you and I connected in terms of VA work, is that I said, can I train them on my sales script? And you were like, absolutely. And then I think you worked with them a little bit on it, and they, you know, reviewed it, and then we talked about it, and it was a whole process. Yeah. Can you speak to, because I saw a post that you did where you said you actually like secret shopped one of your people. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think the one you're referring to is when I had one of my friends call my business and be a secret shopper for my virtual assistant.
Yes, that's it.
Yes. So I think that's super helpful. And I think it's something that I've actually done quite a few times with my therapist friends, where they'll say, hey, can you call? I'm using this service. You know, some of my friends are using like big virtual reception companies, and they want to check and see how that's going. So it was a great experience, actually. And I was a little bit conflicted because I didn't know how to tell my assistant, like, hey, you know, that guy that just called, you know, that was actually my friend. But I did, because he had really helpful feedback, mostly positive and then some constructive. And I think, you know, well, I don't know, when we're answering the phone and doing the intake process ourselves, it's hard to get feedback on that. But when you have someone else doing it, you know, it's pretty easy to do that. So I recommend it. Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, they do it at other businesses. Why would we not just, you know, check in and see how things are going? I know when I'm doing calls, whether it's for, you know, signing people into my courses or into my group practice, I'm always looking back on them and thinking like, what went well? You know, what could have gone better? What could I have said differently? How could I have tweaked this? So I'm always looking at, not with a critical eye, but with, you know, a constructive eye of how could I improve upon this and make this run more smoothly?
Absolutely. Talking about price, that's one of the big ones, you know?
Talking about price.
Talking about money.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of people get tripped up on that. That was one of the points that I thought we might talk about as well, is that like we as therapists, we wear so many hats, right? Oh, here it is. It's the power of delegating. There we go. Okay. So we wear so many hats and so I'm curious as to those that are watching, give a shout out in the comments, like a yes, no, or maybe about how, you know, how comfortable you are talking about money and talking about price, because it's a mindset, it's a skill. So having somebody who is trained in that area and is comfortable with it and is kind of removed from the personal piece of it is so important, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I almost think about it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the things I've been coaching my assistant on is how to handle that more effectively. So when people, you know, when their first question is about the price, I tell them not to answer the question, but not in like a slimy therapist kind of way, you know, but find out more about them, connect with them, do those first things, and then you talk about the price along with the value of the service, right?
Yes, 100%. So I see it almost like a little bit of both sides. So if somebody calls me and says, or calls my person now and says, do you accept insurance right off the bat? Typically, I won't have them spend as much time with that kind of person because we're not insurance based. And if somebody, their first question is, I want to use my insurance, we want to connect them with someone who can help them use their insurance.
Definitely.
But if people are calling, so I like to call it standing in your power, right? If people are calling and they want to lead the conversation and talk, ask questions right off the bat, I want to be the one that's leading the conversation. Just like it's like taking the doctor stance or the professional stance. Like we get to lead them through the process and decide what the outcome is, or you know whether it's a right fit. I never want to feel like I'm on the defensive or like I'm having to sell myself to somebody, right?
That's really good. Actually, one of the things that a little confession time here, that in the past I've been really bad at is when I would get certain parents on the phone and they would kind of want to have that first session with you, you know, and then I would let them go too long and let them guide the conversation. And that just never felt like a good thing, you know?
Yeah,
So,
and I similarly have experienced, like, tell me what prompted you to reach out today, and then you get like the whole life story, right? So then it's about guiding you back to, I really appreciate the history. It's going to be helpful to hear about what you're seeing right now, and if we can connect you with a therapist who's a fit, let's do that, and then you can give them that history.
Right. So my line for that is, this sounds like really good material for the first session.
Oh, I really like that.
Right. And then you use that to emphasize how counseling makes a whole lot of sense. You know, with everything that you've shared with me, I can really see how this group would really help your son or daughter, or whatever the situation is, kind of try to make that sort of switch, you know?
Yeah, and that's exactly what you're saying. I think is so important, understanding what they want and need first and why they're calling you, and then being able to match a service or a group to what their need is, rather than trying to like fit it in without knowing what they need at all. So how could you even do that? Like, if you went to the doctor, you know, the physical doctor, you wouldn't just say like, what can you do for me? They would have to understand what the problem was before they could give you some kind of support around it. And I don't think that we're any different. Janine says, agree with being guilty of the first session on the phone. Eek.
Oh, good. I'm not the only one.
No, I think that it's a lot of us for sure. Yeah. So along with the power of delegation, just being able to work in your zone of genius, right? Being able to be a therapist.
Oh, zone of genius. Yes.
You know that term?
You read the book.
I read a lot of books.
Literally one of my favorite books, The Big Leap, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good. Is it Gay Hendricks? Is that who it is?
Mm-hmm,
yeah. A lot of good information in there. He also talks about upper limits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So being able to work in your zone of genius more often, right? By delegating. Is that what you're talking about?
100%. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Janine,
that's been huge for me.
Go for it. Tell us why.
Oh, I think in my development, I spent a lot of time doing things and working on things that were not really focused on my strengths.
Yeah.
And I think the more over the last 2.5 years specifically that I've really dialed into what I'm good at and what I enjoy, that's when my business has really taken off. And then obviously, you know, understanding those upper limits around money and around success, and oh my gosh, it's huge. Yeah.
So I want to dive a little bit more into the money piece, because you've mentioned it a few times. And so one of the objections that I would foresee, so I am 100% in favor of somebody delegating out things that are no longer helpful for them to continue to do themselves. Like for me, it was, you know, as much as it was hard for me to let go of the control of having that phone call when people are coming into the center, it needed to happen so that I could scale, so that I could get to that next step, so I could do the other things that I felt called to do. But it comes at a price, right? Anything that we're delegating out, like I have somebody that comes in, it's silly, but comes and folds and does all my laundry for me and puts it away, and I pay for that. I delegate things out that I don't like to do, or that I know I can be doing other things that are making me more money or bringing me more joy. And that's just, I've given myself permission to do that. But what would you say, because you have this company, The Productive Therapist, where, you know, you're matching VAs with therapists that are perfect for their business, like, what would you say to that objection of, but it's costing me money in my business to hire this out or delegate this out?
Yeah, I remember when I first got a virtual assistant, the business was run by a coach, and who was my coach at the time. And she said, well, what are you going to do with the time of the task that you're delegating? And if you can do something really valuable, meaningful, and or money producing with that time, then it's more than worth the cost, obviously, right? So, you know, if I'm in session for, you hear that lag? Is that me?
That's you. It happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. If I'm in session for 5-6 hours a day and I'm missing phone calls, and we know that if people call and don't get a person, like 72% will hang up and not call back again, something like that, right? So you have to realize that if you're not delegating some things, then you're actually losing money versus the opposite, right?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, just what you said is so important to reinforce, that if you're in session all day, and that was one of the other reasons why it actually pushed me into working with you, because I had people frustrated that even current clients, like I call all the time and I never get an actual person. I'm like, I'm in session, but that can't be an excuse anymore at the place where my practice is at. We have 8 therapists, like they're expecting that there's somebody else there that's doing some of those things. And so So yeah, you want people to be able to connect with a person and not go to the next person on their list. And I always think about, when I manage my time, I think about it in terms of my hourly rate. Like, could I get somebody to do this for less than my hourly rate? And if so, I'll go work an hour and have them do this other thing and still make a profit.
Yeah.
And that would be great.
Absolutely. I think you and I share a value on providing excellent customer service and having sort of like treating our clients as VIPs.
Yes.
So having somebody that answers the phone, that's a huge part of that, I think. And one of the things that stuck with me from a coaching group I was in a year or so ago was that we want to end the search for people. When they're looking for a therapist or they're looking for some kind of support, we want to be the place that ends the search, right? So if somebody answers the phone and then can say, hey, we have this group for you, or we have this therapist for you, and then sign them up and then put it on the calendar. Huge. Yeah.
I love it. That idea of ending the search, right? You don't want them to continue to struggle. So I always preach about the value of marketing and getting visible, and like your ideal client will never be able to get your help if they can't see you or find you. But then the end of that journey is once they see you or find you in terms of marketing and visibility, they still need to connect with you. And if you're in session all day or doing other things, they're unable to connect. And then they feel that sense of unease that they haven't been able to find or get the support that they need. So
sometimes that critical moment passes too, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you've heard this, and we've all heard it many times, that we were considering counseling 6 months ago or 2 years ago, or but they didn't follow through, or maybe they tried and it didn't work out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So even if they need the help, it might pass, or it might justify for them that they don't need it right now if they don't connect with the right person. Like, it didn't work out, so I'm not going to do it anyway.
Exactly.
Awesome.
It's hard to find a good therapist.
It totally is. I mean, I think there's a lot of them out there, and I think that's why it's part of my passion to help them get themselves out there so we can find the good therapists.
Absolutely.
Everybody's excited about the zone of genius in the comments.
Oh, really? Ooh, what's that?
They said, I love the zone of genius. Zone of genius. Amy says, when we aren't in it, work doesn't feel fun. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we want to be doing the things that energize us and don't drag us down, for sure.
What do they call that? Flow?
The flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had kind of joked before we got on this live that, like, it's not me that's the productive therapist. It's everyone I'm trying to support that is the productive therapist.
Right.
I know people have questions because they've been asking them in my group every time I talk about having a new VA. Can you just share a little bit about what the productive therapist is, like how it's helpful, what it means? Feel free to pitch yourself or share how awesome you are.
Well, I mean, I am a very productive therapist, but
yes,
the reason why I chose that name is because I want to help other therapists be more productive and more successful by delegating and using virtual assistants. So the two things that we're really focusing on are virtual reception and then digital marketing. So on the digital marketing side, I want to be the place where people go to execute the stuff that their coach told them to do, right? So when they hear that they got to do email marketing or social media or content, and they don't know what to do or how to do it or how to stick to a consistent plan, then we want to help them do that. And then obviously
can I stop you there for a second? So all of those people that have been through my Group Guru course and said, I don't know how you do it all, Katie, how you do like the freebies and the email list and the Facebook and the social media.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So if they have a strategy and they need someone to implement it, your team is able to do that.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. And you'll love this too. I'm going to get several of them certified with digital marketer as well.
Oh, I love that for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool. I'm excited. I'm like marketing nerd excited about that. Anyway,
we share that nerdiness.
I know, it's great. And then, so the other part is virtual reception, which I think is super important. There's a lot of virtual reception companies out there. Only a few focused on mental health, and so that's kind of the problem I'm trying to solve. And it's a tough one to solve, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, and that's what I found so appealing about working with you versus one of those other virtual assistant companies, is that I wanted someone who was versed in the mental health field, who knew, that framework and not just knew how to answer a phone. And so I see there's some questions. Ivy, will get to your question in a minute. I just wanted to share like what my virtual assistant does for me is she answers my phone calls. She responds to all of my interest forms that come in online. And she also sends out like that first appointment confirmation with intake paperwork. And she's filling my summer camp. I have 2 people filled in my summer camp already. She's doing all of those calls, filling groups, and then just like scheduling things here or there. So she's filling all the schedules and making everything run smoothly while I'm just like doing this, like, right?
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So totally working, totally amazing. Ivy has a question for you. Do you have recommendations for how to talk to clients who call wanting their insurance? If you don't take it, we tend to recommend one of our associates who offer reduced fees. But do you have recommendations for how to still recommend a full fee therapist in that moment? I have some thoughts, but I'm curious about yours.
Yeah, I think it can be done. I don't think if we look at like conversion rates, the number of callers that you get versus the number of clients that actually sign up, I think those folks are gonna sign up less often. But I think there are things that we can do, and I've certainly had the experience where I've worked really hard on my niche, teenage boys, right?
Yeah.
So much so that people would call all the time with, like, say, Kaiser Insurance here in California, and they would choose what that.
So I don't know what that is, but keep going.
Anyway, one of the big insurers in our county, and they would frequently sign up for my services and pay $130, $150 because they couldn't find the right therapist in their insurance. So if you're that good, or if your group practice is that good and that specialized, I think you can do that on a much more frequent basis.
Yeah, and I would agree with that 100%. Is that we have specialties in terms of working with high-risk teens and DBT and all of those things, where typically the kinds of clients that we're seeing are clients that have seen insurance-based clients or have seen 6 to 11 other therapists and are like, they're willing to pay because we haven't found that connection anywhere else. So it ultimately comes down to niching and presence and how you're relaying the value of therapy as an investable opportunity for them. And so that means showing the value in what you do.
Yeah. One of my sort of little scripts too is talking to the potential client about not only the value of therapy, but the importance of being able to afford it. So I never want to sign somebody up, say they have insurance, but they really want to work with me. I wouldn't sign them up if they couldn't afford to do a number of sessions, right? Because that just wouldn't be fair to them. And so, as I think, in part of my sales mindset is about being helpful and service oriented. So if at the end of that call, that person just can't afford it and it doesn't work, I would often offer to look at their insurance list of therapists and make a recommendation. So I think that's good marketing as well,
I agree for sure. And I do something similar. If somebody says, we'll make it work, I always challenge that. And I say, like, I appreciate your confidence in this process, but I want to make sure that it actually is going to be something that's sustainable for you. I wouldn't want your teenager to come in and make a connection with somebody, but you not be able to make it sustainable for the length of treatment that they might need. And so I would then help them find another therapist too. And so I guess the short answer, Ivy, for how to talk to someone who calls wanting to use their insurance, I would be upfront and say, like, we don't accept insurance, but I'm happy to explore the options with you if you're open to looking outside of that.
Really.
So Janine says, does your VA create the Facebook ads and write the emails that go out through your email funnel? No, I do all that myself. That is one of the things that I love, and one of the things that actually is in the near future for Group Guru is Facebook ads for therapists. I actually have a mastermind where I teach you how to do it and walk through it with you, but I'm working on done for you. It's in the process. So Facebook ads is like one of my loves. So yeah, that's me.
I would probably pay you for that.
I'm in. Sold. See, it's on video, everyone. Contract right here. No.
I love Facebook ads too, but I always get stuck on the custom audiences and the targeting. I don't know why. It always trips me up.
It's easier for local therapists. Like, you're a local business, so it makes it so much easier. Amy says, how do you integrate your VA into your team? Well, they're virtual, so they're not coming to like the holiday party, but I've had them talk to all of my therapists to get a sense of their unique personalities. Like, of course, I have the grid of all of their different like specialties and things like that, but I wanted her to get a sense of like, what is it like to talk to this person? So I feel like that's so important, right? Like, it's not just about the specialty, but the connection.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think more recently, I've used a lot of video chat for that. Yeah. And so, when obviously now I have a person in my office, but I also have several other virtual assistants that do support my practice. I've sort of become a junkie of delegating.
I love it.
I have
different genius. You have different what?
Yeah. It's great. But then, so there's some level of interaction between my team members and the virtual assistant, whether it's email or phone or video chat, and that just helps them feel like they're connected. It's nice.
Yeah, for sure. And we have, my virtual assistant has a HIPAA compliant email through our company so they can share everything with everyone. So
perfect. Yeah.
Any final thoughts? Tell people how to get in touch with you if they're interested in exploring more about having a VA or what that might look like.
Absolutely. So
go ahead.
The best place is productivetherapist.com. And I've got a couple of blogs about productivity tools and software things that I like to use there. And then you can sign up for the email list, and you can also book a call with me to talk about what that would look like and how we can help.
Right. So important.
Yeah.
See, we're at full circle. Phone conversations are so important. Book a call with Uriah. Check it out. See how it will work for your business. Allow yourself to think about, what's not serving you to continue to do in your practice, and what would it open up for you to do something more, if you had someone supporting that side. All right. Absolutely. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Uriah. I will talk to you soon. All right. Everyone have a good day. Bye.